And to break it all down, I'm joined by Bruce LeVell. He's the executive director of the National Diversity Coalition for Donald Trump.
Thanks.
So you've had an interesting weekend. Tell me your first reaction when you saw that leaked videotape of Donald Trump.
Well, you know, obviously the language wasn't kosher, and Mr. Trump did apologize. You know, when I did, examine it, it was kind of like guys laughing and talking to each other on that. He didn't know he was being on audio, whatever, and it was just locker room stuff talking. But
do you ever talk like that?
No, I don't.
I mean, do you know a lot of guys who talk?
I will tell you this. I served in ministry for many years as a volunteer and worked with youths. I still work with young black men back in Atlanta and mentor them. We do a lot of mentorship, and there is a strong, one thing about this, Nancy, bringing this out, I've always said that our campaign brings out a lot of the questions that need to be addressed, especially in our African American communities on the black vote, when he says, well, what do you have to lose with that some of these municipalities and cities have been under Democrat rule? It's like, hey guys, you've had this, so a lot of things are being brought to the forefront, but it's also going to question a lot of people on how they do talk privately about each other and making comments like that.
So you're saying it's a good thing he spoke
like that? Well,
no.
It's a good thing that we can talk about this, because this goes on and it will bring out to, like, guys and ladies, don't talk like this. But
do you think that someone who does talk like that should be president of the United States?
Well, he's a man, and he said that happened in 2005, and he said he's a different man in terms of traveling the country and meeting so many different people and realizing, and Nancy, I represent National Diversity Coalition for Trump. We're the largest diversity coalition ever in the history of a Republican candidate. We have over 1 million signups. We have Mexican Americans for Trump, Korean Americans for Trump, CJ Tara, Muslim Americans for Trump, Filipino Americans for Trump, Haitian Americans for Trump, African American pastors for Trump. And I will tell you, I've been talking to a lot of our advisors for the last couple of days. They're still on board with Mr. Trump. They're strong. They're just like, well, okay, he apologized, we move on. So we're still 1,000% behind him.
On the same day that this tape was made public, Donald Trump also said that the Central Park Five, who were exonerated, wrongfully convicted, should not have been exonerated, that perhaps they even should have been executed. What's your reaction to that? Because there are a lot of people in the African American community and Latino communities, the people you're reaching out to, who say, that's even worse than something that he said in a joking way 11 years ago. Yeah.
Well, we're talking about something in the 80s. I know a lot of folks.
But he's talking about it now.
Well, at the end of the day, back in the 80s, I remember traveling to New York, and you remember being like, don't get caught in Central Park after dark. And it was a lot of unfortunate crime in the community. And the statement that went out was not directed towards that. It was a direction towards what happened to the young lady that was raped and murdered, and the other murders that went on in the community, to say, hey, we need to bring back the death penalty, because the United States, if I'm not mistaken, does have 31 states that, exercise capital punishment. So that was just a statement like, look, if you guys are going to go out here killing everyone, then we need to have something to stop this. So that was more of a call to, New York to say, hey, you go out and rob, you do this, we want the death penalty.
That's not necessarily what he said. He said that these 5 men, African American, Latino men, who were wrongfully convicted shouldn't have been exonerated, even though, what does that say about his respect for the rule of law?
Well, no, this is what I've always said from day one, Nancy, and I'm not trying to dodge your question, that a Donald Trump administration is actually going to help our justice system. And I've always said that when you have a man or woman that runs without any special interest group or anything tied to you, you are going to have the best ability to choose the best attorney general, the best, everything that goes down, that trickles down under that type of administration. So with that being said, a prosecution that dropped the ball, a prosecution that rushed through political ties and other elected officials who were infected by the system, who owe their constituents and their backing to say, hey, we got to make a decision. They forced that on these children really quick and made a quick judgment. So, I think it's fair to say that, respectfully, that it's a combination of all types of law enforcement and other elected officials that was part of all of this. So the Trump administration not being holding to any special interest group, no super PACs, that's going to be refreshing for him to choose people that aren't beholden to these groups. That's going to put a mayor under pressure. Say, hey, you got to make a decision. You got to do something. We're going to reelect it if you don't do something. So they rush that on those children. So it's infected across the board, respectfully.
So that's a strong argument. But when you look at the polls, the vast majority of African American voters, Latino voters, aren't sticking around to hear that argument because they're so turned off by things that he has said in this election about African Americans, about Mexican Americans, about Muslims. How do you, as the diversity coordinator, get them to hear that message when they've already said, no way I can vote for this guy?
Well, I think, you know, and I do talk to several thousands of people across the country, I really do. In terms of, let's go down the list, African American supporters. Donald Trump has never said anything racially derogatory towards African Americans. And I'm going to go down the list here in a second.
Well, he's said that they're getting shot in the streets, and their communities are hopeless.
Yes, some.
And
that's true.
Why not vote for me? Because you ain't got anything better to do.
when you know, unfortunately, when you look at some of the cities in Detroit, and I actually serve in ministry and help certain parts of Atlanta who are under duress of Democrat rule and the same old for 30, 40 years. So it's a fair argument to say, well, you guys have had this so long, what the heck do you have to lose? That's true. That's true. So when you have nothing and you've been doing the same old, forget about all the sound bites of things, or he's this, or he's that. People are going to go in that curtain in November 8th, and they're going to say, you know, especially black folk. He says, you know, he's keeping it real.
He's talking about stop and frisk.
Well, I mean, you know, that's
something that turns off.
You know, I was talking to a close friend of mine. He's the CEO of a diversity coalition, and he's a pastor in Cleveland. And he told me last week. He said, you know, Bruce, I wish they would have had some form of that in another part of Cleveland where his nephew wouldn't have got gunned down and shot. So it's not so much as a stop and frisk. There are other things in terms of body cameras, you know, good legislation that bringing more police. There's more to it. It's not just that being the only thing in those communities. But most of all, in order to have economic growth, people talk about jobs in a lot of the African American communities. I know this for a fact. I served on a community district board, and I serve on a police board and a lot of boards. And that one thing I know, you can't have any economic growth or any good schools without public safety. So public safety is going to have to be addressed extremely aggressive. And it's going to be uncomfortable, but at the end of the day, you know, we're at a point now where we had several, you know, 3,000 plus murders in Chicago and other cities. So at what point do we say, you know, what do we have to lose? What we have to do whatever we can to save our children. So that's a very emotional tie to Mr. Trump's heart. I know that for a fact.
Bruce LeVell, the diversity coordinator for the Trump campaign. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
I appreciate it.
All right.